Every morning, millions of Americans make the same cup of coffee. Same mug, same routine, same creamer. For a lot of them, that creamer is Coffee Mate, made by Nestlé, the biggest food company in the world. And for decades, that creamer had a promise right on the label: 0 grams trans fat. For older Americans, people watching their hearts, checking their cholesterol, doing everything their doctor told them, that label was important. They read it, they trusted it, they poured it into their coffee every single morning. It was a lie. Coffee Mate contained trans fat the entire time. Nestlé knew, and they kept selling it anyway. So how does the world's largest food company get away with something like that? And why did it take 40,000 seniors filing a lawsuit to make it stop? Let's start with what trans fat actually is, because this matters. In the mid-20th century, food companies discovered something useful. If you pump hydrogen into vegetable oil, it becomes solid at room temperature, lasts longer, tastes richer, cheaper to produce. They called it partially hydrogenated oil, and they put it in everything. The problem? It turned out to be one of the most dangerous substances ever introduced into the American food supply. Trans fat raises bad cholesterol. It lowers good cholesterol. It causes cardiovascular disease, increases the risk of diabetes, accelerates cognitive decline, and has been linked to tens of thousands of excess American deaths every single year. The American Heart Association knew. The National Academies of Science knew. Researchers had been publishing these findings for decades. Eventually, even the FDA couldn't ignore it. In 2015, they made it official. Partially hydrogenated oil was declared an unsafe food additive. Not unsafe in excess. Unsafe. Period. So where does Coffee Mate fit into all of this? Coffee Mate is made with partially hydrogenated oil. Was for years. The same substance the FDA called unsafe. The same substance scientists linked to heart disease and early death. But the label said 0. Here's the trick. And it really is a trick. Under American labeling law, you can print 0 grams trans fat on a product if a single serving contains less than 0.5 grams. So Nestlé set the serving size for Coffee Mate at 1 tablespoon. 1 tablespoon. Think about that for a second. When was the last time you measured 1 tablespoon of creamer? Nobody does that. People use 2 tablespoons. 3. 4. Every extra tablespoon is nearly half a gram of trans fat. 3 cups of coffee a day, 2 tablespoons each. A senior thinking they were consuming 0 grams was actually getting close to 3 grams of trans fat before lunch. Every single day. For years. And before you think this was just an oversight, it was not an oversight. 1 tablespoon is roughly the size of your thumb. It covers the bottom of a coffee mug and disappears. Nobody looks at that and thinks, yes, that is enough. The serving size wasn't chosen because it makes sense. It was chosen because it makes the math work. Below 0.5 grams. The label says 0. Problem solved for Nestlé, anyway. And here's the part that really stings. Nestlé's competitors had already removed partially hydrogenated oil from their products. It wasn't technically impossible. It wasn't expensive beyond reason. Other companies had done it. Nestlé simply chose not to. Why fix something when the label already says 0? Now, who drinks the most coffee in America every day? Not college students. Not young professionals. Seniors, Americans over 60, consistently top every study on daily coffee consumption. And who reads food labels the most carefully? People who have been told by their doctors to read them. Older Americans managing heart disease. People on cholesterol medication. Retirees who had a scare and changed everything. Their diet, their habits, their labels. These are the people who saw 0 grams of trans fat on Coffee Mate and thought, good, this one is safe. This one I can trust. They weren't making a careless choice. They were making the choice a $250 billion corporation spent years engineering them to make. The lawsuit started in 2015, same year the FDA acted. Plaintiff Mark Beasley had been buying Coffee Mate for years, specifically because he was trying to avoid trans fat. When he found out the product contained partially hydrogenated oil the whole time, he sued. The complaint didn't hold back. It noted that Nestlé was well aware of the dangers of trans fat. It pointed out that competitor products had already removed it. It said plainly that Nestlé chose not to follow its peers. Another class action followed in 2018, then more, then more. Nestlé's defense: we follow the law. 1 tablespoon less than 0.5 grams, 0 on the label. Technically correct. Practically dishonest. That is what a company worth $265 billion does when it gets caught. It argues definitions. It points to regulations. It does not apologize. It does not acknowledge the 73-year-old woman who spent 15 years trusting its label while trying to protect her heart. The courts weren't buying it. Judges repeatedly denied Nestlé's motions to dismiss. The cases survive. And as they did, tens of thousands of people started asking the same question. Wait, how long did they know? The answer was uncomfortable. The science on trans fat had been building since the 1990s. Nestlé didn't reformulate Coffee Mate when the studies came out. They didn't reformulate when their competitors did. They reformulated in 2018 when the FDA enforcement deadline left them with literally no other choice, on the last possible day. That tells you everything about the company's internal culture. Not, how do we do right by the people buying our product, but how long can we legally keep doing this? Those are two very different questions. And for years, Nestlé had a very clear answer to the second one: as long as we need to. But here's what you really need to understand. Coffee Mate is not the whole story, it's one chapter. Nestlé is the largest food and beverage company in the world. They own over 2,000 brands: Nescafé, Kit Kat, Gerber, Maggi, Purina, Häagen-Dazs, Perrier. They operate in 188 countries, and they have one of the longest documented histories of finding the world's most vulnerable consumers and building a business around their trust. I'd go back to the 1970s. Nestlé began aggressively marketing infant formula in developing countries. Saleswomen dressed as nurses handed out free samples in hospitals. Mothers switched from breastfeeding. Their milk dried up. Then they had to buy the formula. But in communities without clean water, mixing formula with contaminated water was lethal. A study using birth records from over 2.5 million infants across 38 countries found that Nestlé's market entry was linked to approximately 212,000 excess infant deaths per year at the peak of the crisis. That figure covers just 1 year, 1981. Nestlé denied responsibility. The world boycotted. Some things changed. Some didn't. In 2024, a Swiss investigative organization tested 115 of Nestlé's baby food products sold in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. They found that 94% contained added sugar. One serving in the Philippines had 7.3 grams, nearly 2 teaspoons, of added sugar for infants under 6 months old. The same product sold in Switzerland, 0 added sugar. Nestlé's home country, same company. 2 different standards. One for the countries that can regulate them, one for the countries that can't. And then there's the coffee. Coffee Mate is banned in several countries. Denmark banned trans fats in food in 2003, 15 years before the United States acted. Switzerland, the country Nestlé calls home, had strict limits on partially hydrogenated oil long before the FDA caught up. Canada moved. The European Union moved. Most of the developed world moved. In the United States, Nestlé kept selling Coffee Mate with its 1 tablespoon loophole and its 0 on the label until they legally couldn't anymore. So what does that tell you? It tells you Nestlé didn't need a scientific breakthrough to fix Coffee Mate. They didn't need new technology or a regulatory push. They needed a country with laws strong enough to force their hand. And in America, for a long time, they didn't have one. So they kept going. The same product, the same label, the same 0, sold to the same seniors who trusted it most. Think about that the next time you see a company describe itself as a good corporate citizen. The creamer is different now. The partially hydrogenated oil is gone. The label says 0 grams of trans fat, and for once, it means it. But the 40,000 people who filed suit didn't do so because they were angry about a label. They did it because they understood what the label represented. It represented a company that saw a dangerous ingredient in its product, watched its competitors remove it, watched the science get clearer and clearer, and made a deliberate choice to keep selling it. because the label could say 0 and 0 sounded safe. They weren't wrong to trust. Trust is reasonable. Reading labels is reasonable. Believing that the world's biggest food company wouldn't put something harmful in your daily coffee and then tell you it's fine, that's not naive. That's just human. But Nestle wasn't making a product. They were making a label. That's the difference. And that's why it took 40,000 people in a courtroom to make them stop. If you like this video, click the next video on screen to find out how Subway quietly exploited its customers.